My name is Dennis Gillen. I am the executive director of the Half a Sorrow Foundation, based on the Swedish proverb, a shared joy is a double joy, a shared sorrow is half a sorrow. Today, we have a wonderful speaker who's going to share some of his sorrow. We're going to end on a real good message of hope, because our speaker today is Cameron Stout, a nationally known securities litigator, as well as an alcoholic and a survivor of a massive depressive episode in 2013. And Cam, I'm going to thank you in advance for even just sharing that. Feeling better in many ways than he ever has, Cam has been sharing his story of healing and hope with legal professionals and students around the country. Cam will describe for us the mental illness, addiction, and suicide challenges that the legal profession faces, and how the profession and its regulators have responded to those challenges. Cam will also offer several of his own poignant experiences as a mental wellness mentor. He will close with his vision of a new mission for changing the legal landscape. And this fits perfect for what we're trying to do with the workplace suicide prevention, which, by the way, is a collaboration between the good people at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and United Suicide Survivors International. We all know our 8 guiding principles, followed by the 9 practices to make a suicide prevention a health and safety priority. And it's kind of exciting today because we really need the legal community behind us on this. We've done some work with HR lawyers, and now we get to hear from a litigator. Cam?
Thanks, Dennis. I'm no longer working as a lawyer. I've given about 125 talks on my story, other issues, resilience, healthcare, most of them to AmLaw 100, that is top 200 law firms. I'm also a mentor. I'm an embedded mentor at the firm of Shepherd Mullen. So we're going to talk today briefly about what are the risk factors in my profession, both for mental illness, substance abuse, and suicide. We'll go through some statistics. They're daunting. I'm going to compare the ABA Wellbeing Pledge to the 9 practices. As far as I know, no law firm, although I am an outsider, has specifically adopted the guidelines. I have ideas about best practices. I want to bring some of the elephants into the room. I'll explain what that means, why mentoring is important. I'm going to give a grade to my colleagues out there, and then I'm going to talk about a new mission as I see it. So here are the problems. It's a very stressful profession. All professions, every trade is stressful. It's a stressful life, and all the more stressful because of COVID. In my profession, it's adversarial. Lawyers are fighting each other. I'm a litigator. I know that. I've been in plenty of fights. We're trying to make each other lose, and we're saying mean things about each other. We're very profit driven. No matter what lawyers will tell you, we are capitalist entities. We should be. That's what we're there for. But sometimes the profits get in the way. Profits are driven by the billable hour. And that is, I never liked it. Most firms have a minimum. It's too high of a minimum. And it's a struggle every day. And it gets in the way of your self-care. Making partner in a pyramid-shaped organization is hard. The deadlines come at you all the time. There are high expectations, especially for younger lawyers. There's a tendency to get pigeonholed, to get put on a tiny little part of the case. And I'm talking now about all legal professionals, and I talk with everybody, the allied professionals, staff, HR, everybody, not just the lawyers. But there's too much of a lack of appreciation. And then finally, there's such career risk or perceived risk with coming out and talking about your stuff. Here are the stats, and you'll see that suicidality is down at the bottom, and there just aren't very many stats about those, and that's going to be a theme in my short talk. You can see that depression has gone up. The study, if you look here, these are the results of a study that was done by a friend of mine who's on my company's advisory board, Patrick Krill. And this is a big survey and a groundbreaking survey nationwide. 1 in 5, this is like Danny has depression, and you can see the rest of these stats, and they've gotten worse over time, but we need more stats on suicide in our profession. It still remains an under the rug proposition. As I mentioned, the ABA Wellbeing Pledge was launched by the ABA in September 2018, really prodded by those stats we just looked at. It's a 2-phase process. Law firms who take the pledge, and there are 213, need to do step one and follow the framework. And then you renew your pledge every year. And so 213 signatories, I think of my, let's say 45 law firm clients, I would say by far the majority have taken the pledge. And the secret is, what do you do to follow it? So as I mentioned, this is the pledge, a 7-point framework. So similar to the 9 practices. And I'm going to try and compare these quickly as we go along to try to connect the dots between our pledge and the national guidelines practices. So provide robust education. And I think that probably aligns with practice 3 on understanding. But again, you don't see anywhere the word suicide in any of these. Number 2 is risk mitigation, and I think it's a good one. Alcohol is everywhere in my job, and I'm an alcoholic. That's not an easy thing. Providing outside providers, I think this lines up with practice 7. More of the resources here, and I think that the law firms really do a good job spending money to have these resources. I think 5 corresponds with 9. The crisis responses are pretty good in law firms. Core values, self-care, cultural cultivation, these are important. And I think the same with 7. So I raced through there. The bottom line is we're getting better and we have something like the practices in our profession, but we're missing the word suicide. We don't see a job strain reduction principle or really anything specialized on suicide training. These are my best mental health best practices, and a lot of law firms use them. You got to make sure everyone knows about the resources. Mark and I talked about EAP. We have to learn to share challenges. This is where I come in. I share my lived experience. It pushes back on stigma, really important. We need more training on suicide prevention. It's not really in there any place. Having lived experience speakers is critically important. That's me, and insiders are good on that too. Mental wellness mentors are key, and I am an independent contractor, mental wellness mentor or ambassador at Shepherd Mullen, and more firms are doing that. And we need to help other colleagues. We need to practice that, do role play, and we got to incentivize these elephants who aren't in the room. These are the partners. They're getting better and better about adopting this and paying money to make this happen, but they need to be more engaged, especially as mentors. Mentors, it is everything. I call them first responders. I ran a mentoring program in my old law firm for 20 years. And if you have good mentors, you are going to clean up a lot of problems. And the problem is getting the senior lawyers and senior staff to buy into that. And I think the best practice of all this is Mo, my dog. Let's stop letting the tail wag the dog in our profession. I think this applies to so many different business entities. The tail in my metaphor here is the profits of the dog, i.e. the enterprise. And I think we spend too much time compromising the health of the dog. A healthy dog where everyone's working together, they understand training, they understand suicide prevention, and they really care about work-life balance and self-care, they're going to produce profits effortlessly. A healthy dog can wag his tail or her tail all day long, and Mo there does just that. So how are we doing? Let's get a scorecard out. Better not call Sal, but you better ask Ann. And Ann is Ann Bradford. She's one of the real thought leaders in my profession, and she has put together a fantastic resource. She did a survey around the country of all the big firms and basically went through and said, this firm does this well, this firm does that well, et cetera, et cetera. She gave, I mentioned 213 firms have taken the pledge. She gave the highest rating only to 15. So I get a little bit of my nose under the tent to find out how are the associates doing. And it depends. I mentored one kid, not a kid, 40-year-old, who had been a naval aviator. He was a helicopter pilot in the Gulf. And I said, oh, you must be so happy being back stateside. He said, no, I'd go back because my job is so stressful. So not a good rating for that firm. I've got another mentee who I asked him, what was the best thing the firm did for you? And he said, my practice leader, that is a senior lawyer, just came to me when I was down and said, "Are you okay? You don't seem yourself." And he said that made all the difference. Well, everyone needs to be doing that. It's not that tough, but there's a tendency to stay siloed. And I'm not picking on the legal profession, but we need to do more. We need to learn to share. And so I'm giving them a B to B plus. Some are better than others. Some get A's. This is an overall grade. But what I'm really happy about is when I started doing this 9 years ago, people were just checking the box. Oh, we need continuing legal education credit, and we have to take mental health training. We're going to check the box and move on. But our profession, I'm proud of it. We're doing more and more in this area. And so I'm going to leave you with what I have written up. As a friend of mine once said, Cam, after he was a partner of mine, we had parted ways at our old firm. And he said, Cam, if you were going to start a firm, and I didn't raise my middle finger, but I was not excited about doing that. But he said, if you did, what would you write for your mission statement? And I wrote this. And this to me is the healthy dog. This is my idea about it. First of all, there's inclusion here, a group of legal professionals. And we're admired for how we care for each other, not just our financial success. And one of the benefits is that clients of law firms are very focused on, some of them, the in-house lawyers there have even taken the ABA Wellbeing Pledge. And clients understand that happy lawyers are very good outside lawyers to retain. It drops down on attrition, especially amongst associates, so the clients don't face a revolving door. And so there are any number of reasons to adopt this sort of a mission. And I think just, I'm a huge fan. I'm going to leave you with this idea. I'm a huge fan of Fred Rogers. I love Fred Rogers. And the reason I do is that he is a natural leader in all the great senses of that word. And if you can bring the people in your organization to truly understand that we, management, like you, the folks who work with us, just the way you are, that to me is the golden rule in action. I know this sounds corny, coming through from a 30-year lawyer and a former corner partner, but that to me is what's important. So as I say at the end of my talks, thank you so much. And I wish all of you a day and a week and a year of going forward with a lighter heart and a more focused mind. Thanks so much.
Cameron, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.